Welcome back, my lovely beans. I hope you had a wonderful day, and we are back on track with another guide. Today, we are looking at Mirage. Why Mirage? Because she has a lot of build options. She's really fun to play, and you can just zoom through maps with her. Not world speed zoom, but still really good. Also, as you know, we do have, the cool skin, and I like it. I'm not really good at fashion framing, I will be absolutely honest, but I did do my best, so it's a interesting combination. But I hope you have fun and keep watching. Hall of Mirrors is Mirage's first ability. It projects up to 4 duplicates mirrors of herself. If you look at them, they will go see-through to make it easier for yourself. It follows and mimics her movement and also her attack. The holograms are invulnerable and drawing enemies' attention and dealing part of the player's damage. Damage, crit chance, and status chance is based off the ability strength. They don't benefit from melee combo counter, and when you throw a glaive, they are throwing the glaive as well, but they can't detonate them. They don't get the bonus from arcane enhancement and galvanized mods. 4 of them actually attacking when you're using a melee, but only 2 when you're shooting. When you're shooting, keep in mind, as you can see, that they are not aiming at the same spot. Like, it's slightly, off because of the position of the mirrors and who's actually shooting in the end. So just keep in mind, it's sometimes a little bit annoying to aim at someone. To buff the mirrors, you can use the Augment Total Eclipse, so actually the damage buff of Solar Eclipse applies to your mirrors. The second ability is called Sleight of Hand. Generates a gem in front of her and taps all objects in a scaling radius. Each pickup of these gems, or like whatever they're picking up, ammo, objects, it depends what they're picking up, and that type they're dealing as elemental damage. If it plays in the sun, it deals blast damage when exploding. If it deals in the shadow, it will blind enemies. When casted while the Hall of Mirrors are activated, as you can see, you get smaller versions of it. And it is actually recastable and also stackable. Mirage's third ability is Eclipse. You have for tap the Lunar Eclipse and for hold the Solar Eclipse. The Lunar Eclipse is the damage reduction version and is kept at 90%. Solar Eclipse increases Mirage weapon damage. The buff is applied multiplicative to the weapon after the weapon's total damage value. It affects direct damage and status damage, but it doesn't double dip for faction damage like Roar does. It has a slight casting delay, which can be be surpassed by casting speed if you want to. And to apply your Eclipse buff to teammates, you would need to run the Augment Total Eclipse. It does apply to certain abilities, even when it's said that it is mostly for weapon damage. For Mirage itself, when you're using the Lunar version for your Prism, it cuts the costs in half. And when you're using it in the Solar variant, it is doubling your damage by 100%. Eclipse is Mirage Helmet's ability and unlocks the option to use Total Eclipse on other frames. Little info here, you can't have 2 damage buffing abilities at the same time on the same frames. Means you can't have Vex Armor, Resupply, Amp, Raw, Ripper's Wall, or Zarda's Whisper on a frame and subsume Eclipse on it unless you subsume Eclipse over the named abilities. The last ability is called Prism. It generates a prism in her hand that she's pushing in front of her with a steady speed. The prism shoots lasers. The amount of damage and the amount of lasers is based off your strength. It has a slight casting delay once again, which is affected by casting speed. It is not directly a channeled ability, but most of the energy resupply mods, for example Energy Nexus, don't work while it's active. Prism stays on the ground either till your duration runs out or your energy runs out, or if you actually tap it again, you simply explode the wall. For the Augment, the first Augment is called Hall of Malevolence. It increased the damage of your mirrors. The scaling scales according to your ability duration. The second Augment is called Explosive Legerdman. Turns all pickups from Sleight of Hand in mines that will detonate. Works with Desecrate of Necros if you have one in your team. The extra drops guarantees you a lot of objects. And for a lot of situations, it's not suggested to have too much range simply because it dilutes the drops and the enemies too much, so it is not as effective. Total Eclipse is the augment for the third ability and applies the Eclipse buff to allies in a fixed 50-meter radius. Actual allies are your teammates, are your pets, and also your mirrors, for example. Prism Guard is the argument for the 4. The prism sticks to Mirage instead of freely flying around. The ability duration is sadly reduced for quite a bit. For builds, we have this time quite the variety, so I'm pretty sure you will find something that you will enjoy. First things first, why not a weapon platform specifically set up for melee? Why melee? Simply because our mirrors are all 4 attacking while using a melee, and only 2 of them attacking when you're using a primary or secondary. For that, we have Steel Sarge as our aura mod for extra melee damage. If you don't have that, great options are also Corrosive Projection or Growing Power. You can also use Dreamer's Bond if you really have nothing else and you don't want to like aura former that slot. That is absolutely fine. Enemy Radar if you don't have that mod on your pad to like simply see a little bit more, or if you want to make sure that you don't lose your combo. Another good option is Swift Momentum, simply because it helps you to keep your melee combo duration. Keep in mind, combo duration doesn't affect your mirrors. For the build itself, we do have Rolling Guard for the Oopsies, Equilibrium and Prime Flow for our energy economy, Hall of Malevolence for the extra damage on our doppelgangers or mirrors, Blind Rage for the strength, Transit Fortitude for extra strength, Prime Continuity for a little bit more duration on Raffle Advance and on our Eclipse, and Umbral Intensify for a little bit more strength as well, because we do want to scale as much strength as possible to get the extra little bit of damage out of our doppelgangers. Setups for the Arcanes are Arcane Fury, simply to have melee damage for base damage, and Mold Argument for more strength. You can swap this Mold Argument out if you want to with whatever you feel comfortable. We're getting nice red crits, we're showing them off, getting a little bit of damage. We don't even have our full combo up at the moment, but definitely, you know, nice, quick. For survivability, we are mostly relying on Rolling Guard and that our mirrors are drawing the aggro. For this build, to make it more comfortable, Arcane Shard wise, definitely I would say you can run Purple Shards to have more crit damage, always nice. Other than that, you can double dip into the ability Strength to have more strength on your Solar Eclipse and Raffle Advance. Or you can go and say you want to have more armor to be more safe, more health if you want to go that way, because you feel like, oh, that build is great and it's fun, but it's missing a tiny bit of protection. Absolutely fine. Other than that, you know, casting speed is definitely always what I'd suggest for all builds, and Parker Velocity simply to make it more comfortable. For our daily comfort build, I choose a health tank build, because why not? For our aura, we used Corrosive Projection. If you want to swap that out for whatever weapon damage you're choosing, that is a good option. Or Warframe Camaraderie, for example. Once again, you can also use Growing Power if you wanted to. Preparation simply, so at the beginning of the mission we can cast everything once to make it more comfortable. We have Adaptation for damage reduction, Equilibrium for energy economy, same with Primed Flow, Vitality for health. If you are preferring to have in total an Umbral setup, you can definitely use that. Then you would use Umbral Vitality and also try to fit, most likely instead of Blind Rage, you would use Umbral Intensify here. Health Conversion to get more armor from your health orb sets. Total Eclipse, so the Eclipse buff is also affecting your mirrors because we're using the Solar Eclipse variant, and Continuity for duration, simply for comfort. We're using Arcane Blessing and Mold Argument. Instead of Mold Argument, you can also use Guardian if you wanted to be a little bit more on the safe side. For our Subsume, we're subsuming Null Star over the 2. If you subsume it over the 2 or the 4, that is up to you, whatever you feel more comfortable with and what you want to use. We're using Null Star for damage reduction and Eclipse and the Solar Eclipse. If you feel like you need a little bit more, you know, protection, then definitely use the Luna version, but I was like, I want to have a little bit more damage. And as well, Hall of Mirrors, once again, they are drawing the aggro for you partially, and they're invulnerable, so don't worry too much about that. This setup works with every type of weapon. I just like to run around with a melee from time to time, so that's why I choose this one. So we are casting our mirrors, having Eclipse in the solar form, have null stars for the damage reduction. You do need to recast your null stars since we are not on Nova. But besides that, really comfortable. If you pick up health orbs, you get more life over time, so good choice. For this build, I would maybe suggest to run, for example, a Raxa simply for the protection mod. Also, it can help, especially to run Hunter Recovery to recover some health, but you have a lot of options. For Arcane Shards for this build, you're kind of free whatever you want. As always, I suggest casting speed. Also, generally, you know, if you want to run quicker through the mission, Park Velocity is great. If you run a melee setup, like I suggested, maybe a purple shard to make it more comfortable, or like to get more crit damage out of it. Not comfortable, not that it's needed. We do have, you know, solar eclipse, but that's beside the point. Other than that, duration is always good, or more strength. If you want to double dip into other weapons, you can put orange shard for your heat for your secondaries, or green shards for the corrosive stacks. Like, actually test for your daily build around what makes you feel most comfortable. Or if you say you want to like save on shards because you like to use Mirage on your daily setup, but not going too deep into it, not every frame needs actually 5 shards constantly on them. So it's totally fine to just say, I put 1 casting speed on and I'm good to go. ESO. Who doesn't know or who doesn't like a Mirage in ESO nuking? Needs a little bit of help in the start, you know, get the first few kills to get explosive legerdman working, but besides that, we're running corrosive protection. Once again, you can swap that out, whatever you feel comfortable with. We want to run high range, high strength, medium duration. That's personally what I choose. Some people say to not run too much range, especially because it can affect or dilute your pool. I would say in action mission, yes. In ESO, it's absolutely fine to run max range. We're running overextended for extra range, equilibrium for energy economy, same with stretch, Arcane Vitality. Why are we running like triple Arcane mods if you don't have them, if you can't fit them because of your capacity? Absolutely fine. Simply because what is Light of Hand doing? It damage in different type of elements, and so we're triggering more elements or having effect of these elements. We're simply running the Argo mods. That is just, you know, a little bit of tweaking. If that's something you like, do it. If you feel like it's too much, you don't have to do it. We're running Transit Fortitude for strength, same with Blind Rage, and obviously we're running the Argument. For Arcanes, we're running Mold Efficiency and Mold Argument. Technically, instead of Mold Efficiency, you can also run Steadfast to simply get here and there a free cast, but I feel like it is definitely not needed, simply because we're running Dispensary over our 4. Be a bit careful when you're in ESO. You can't spam your Dispensary, but we have a duration of nearly 16 seconds, so you're actually absolutely fine in my opinion. That's exactly what I would say for the ESO build, Arcane Shard wise. You might want to have definitely, you know, casting speed on. That's the only thing where I feel like that is a little bit of a must on Mirage to make it more comfortable. Outside of that, test around, and nothing is needed for the ESO setup. Prism Guard. Prism Guard is the argument for the 4. What does it make? It makes actually that the prism is following you instead of flying randomly around. Once again, corrosive protection, simply because less armor on the enemies means more damage on your side. We're running Rolling Guard for the Oopsies, Prime Flow and Equilibrium for the energy economy. If you think that is too much and you don't want to fit that much, absolutely fine. You can drop Flow, just keep in mind due to Blind Rage your energy costs are slightly higher. And Prism, especially with Prism Guard, have a low duration, so you do need to recast quite a bit. Narrow Minded for extra duration, Blind Rage for strength, continuity, Prime Continuity for the duration, Stretch for extra range, and Prism Guard for the argument. You will say, oh my god, we're running negative range. Sounds scary in the first second, right? But keep in mind the Prism is actually sticking to us. And even with 80% range, we still hit 20 meters, which is like quite a bit. So I would say it's enough. If you feel like you don't need it, drop Narrow Minded and put some red Archon shots on, simply to balance it out and have more comfort on your Prism. As I said, lunar eclipse and solar eclipse are both affecting your prism, but your mirrors can't cast an extra prism. So, and keep in mind, it can be quite bright, so maybe make sure that your colors are not too annoying, especially if you play with other people, so you don't bothering them too much. The duration is, thanks to PRISM God, sadly quite reduced, so you definitely need to reclass it, and I would also suggest to have casting speed on her. If you want to fit natural talent in your build, that is also a great option. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but once again, casting speed. Casting speed, really important on Mirage. Besides that, strength, if you want to, and you don't want to like wait for mold Augment to stack up, that is definitely something. You could also think you running more strength to your shards and like, you know, double dip and have steadfast here if you wanted to. It's just options. It's not a must. Keep also in mind that like you don't need that much strength. I will be absolutely honest. It is, you know, not absolutely needed, but it's kind of nice. As you all know, I personally like to run Void Cascade. Mirage was one of my favorite frames to actually go through Void Cascade. The setup is a little bit specific, I will not lie about that. We're running Corrosive Protection simply because, in my opinion, she doesn't have a good ability to shield gate, so I personally don't like to run Briefest Bite on her. Also, less armor on enemies means more damage on your side. We're running Catalyzing Shield to have 1.33 seconds of shield gating, also to make it easier to recharge our shield. For that, we have Fast Deflection and Vigilant Vigor. We have Rolling Guard for the Oopsies, Narrow-Minded for the duration, Blind Rage for the extra strength, Prime Continuity for duration. We're running a pure melee setup, so Arcane Fury for more melee damage and Mold Argument for more strength. As Subsume, we are running Omamoru. So here's the trick. Omamoru is, you know, your first layer of protection. Then you have Hall of Mirrors. As I said, your clones or your mirrors will actually take aggro and are invulnerable. So they will take quite a few shots for you, and you just need to make sure that they're always up. Sadly, Hall of Mirrors is not recastable, so you actually need to like make sure as soon as it's down that you're recasting in that second. I would also suggest to cast it in the air. Then Eclipse, you do want for the damage to run it in the solar version because damage reduction is not helping you. How to stay alive in that specific setup here, I definitely would suggest to run something that is called Carnist mods. I used one of them on my epitaph. I would say one is enough if you can fit on any of your build a second one. What is Carnist doing? Killing an enemy with a heavy attack reduces enemy accuracy against Warframes by 10% and grants immunity to status effects. And that immunity to status effects is really important because when you detonate your glaive, that counts as a heavy attack, and the status effects means no slash proc on you and no heat procs on you. And that is what keeping you alive, besides obviously having secondary fortifier if you shoot around, right? Also Augment is always helpful for these types of build. And we're running a Falcor setup because while your clones are not detonating the Falcor, right, or glaives in general, but they're still throwing them. So you still have 4 mirrors that are like actively throwing your glaive around. For this setup, you can run, for example, a Slyval Profiler simply because of the survival instinct. On bullet jump, enemies lose sight of you for 1.5 seconds. It has a 5 seconds cooldown, but keep in mind, whenever you are in the air, whenever it is active, it protects you. Other options are obviously Worm with Negate, just in case, you know, the Carnist is not enough, or Texan for extra shield recharge. You're activating your mirrors, you're activating your Omamoru for yourself, you're activating Eclipse, and then you're just throwing your Falcor. And that's literally it. For the Void setup, I would say you definitely want to have casting speed and parkour velocity. That's 2 quite common ones for running parkour velocity, and minimum of 2 purple shots for the extra crit damage, just to make sure that you are comfortable with your Falcor till level cap. Is it needed technically with Solar Eclipse? Not most likely. Am I still liking it? Yes. For the last one, I usually was running a duration shot, simply so my Hall of Mirrors are up more time. Why is it so important? Hall of Mirrors, as I said, is not recastable, and it's actually what keeps, or like what is a layer of your protection, right? So you actually needed to make sure that it's up all of the time, and sometimes it took me a second to realize they were down because I was busy with something and it was missing it, so I wanted to have the most duration as possible, so I was running 1 red shot. If you're just starting out and you still want to use Mirage, a good option is, as always, a beginner build. Why are we choosing Dreamer's Bond? Simply because it is our mod that we're getting as a quest reward. Also, regenerating energy and health is never wrong. Vitality for base health, Equilibrium for our enemies, energy economies. Same with flow, so we are actually able to cast our abilities. Redirection, we're going towards the slight idea of shield tanking and a little bit of health just in case something is surpassing our shield. Continuity for duration for our eclipse. Intensify for strength. First helps on the Hall of Mirrors, and if you want to use any other ability helps as well. Fast deflection to recharge our shield, and stretch. So you do have safety wise, even so Mirage sounds quite squishy, you have the mirrors that are taking away aggro from you. Also with the strength that we're currently having, we already have 4 doppelgangers, so don't worry about that. They're just putting out less damage than on other builds. And we're having Eclipse. You can definitely run it if you feel comfortable in the solar version to get a little bit of buff, like 260% on your weapons is great. Otherwise you do have damage reduction. Damage reduction simply means that the damage that is incoming is reduced by X amount of percent. And as one of the last options, it's a Mecha set. Mecha is simple, you do get lots of armor from it. It's funny, especially if you use it with a melee setup. I personally like to run it here and there, you know, Raxa with, you know, Mecha set and the like protection mod together with Hunter Recovery. I know a lot of investment, but it's still fun. For the Arcanes, we're running Arcane Blessing for extra health, and we're running Arcane Guardian on 15% chance for 900 armor for 20 seconds if we're getting damaged. We're running Adaptation, Equilibrium, Mecha Pulse, Umbral Intensify, Prime Continuity for the duration, Transit Fortitude. I personally don't want to run Negative Strength. I personally don't want to run Blind Rage simply because I feel like I don't need more strength. If you feel like you want to go all in and you want to have more strength than we currently have 230, that is absolutely fine. Just keep in mind, I personally didn't want to like dip into negative efficiency. So Total Eclipse, because then it will also affect your mirrors and Umbral Vitality for the base health. For Subsume, you can either Subsume Nullstar for extra tankiness, and then you can actually run Eclipse in offense version and Solar Eclipse, or if you say you want to run a pure melee setup, which is usually with Mecha working quite well, I can also suggest to run Raffle. If you want to have the extra damage, then I definitely would suggest to run Eclipse in the Lunar version, so in the damage reduction version, defense version. For Arcane Shards for this build, I would suggest to run for sure, in my preference, always casting speed. Casting speeds affect multiple of Mirage's ability, especially because some of them do have a slight cast delay, so it makes it definitely more comfortable to use. In addition to that, it's absolutely up to you if you want to go more into ability strength, if you want to go more into ability duration, if you want to have more comfort, or if you try to boost your weapon damage by having purple shards for crit damage on. Keep in mind, we currently don't have flow on. If you want to double dip like the extra strength from the purple shards, I would suggest to swap Equilibrium with Prime Flow out, so you are over 500 energy, or to put blue shards for energy on and then have Equilibrium on, or if you have Prime Flow on, to use at least 1 Equilibrium shard. Outside of that, test around what you prefer for weapons. If you have open slots, you can still run Parker Velocity if you want to get smoother through your map. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. Let me know which build is your favorite and what you're running on your Mirage. And see you next time. Bye bye!